Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm just going to share with you guys the battles that I played to reach Veteran in the Ultra League, and I'm not going to spend 5 minutes at the beginning of this video explaining the team because I already made a video on this team yesterday, so if you would like some more in-depth explanation on the team, I would highly recommend checking out yesterday's video. But just as a recap, this team was inspired by the recently crowned world champion, Yakai0904. He got on leaderboards with this team, and also if you would like to check out more content with this team, Zerfelrose told me that he used it in his live stream, and that video is up on his YouTube channel, so definitely go and check that out. Now I'm just going to jump into the battles because I have quite a few to get through, and Psychic Cup and Master League are going to start in a few hours. I want to cover those as well, so I'm working against the clock. Anyways, in this first battle, we were up against a Shadow Dusknoir on the lead, which is a pretty good lead for us because we have that Skuntank, which is going to be resisting everything from this Dusknoir. Now my opponent swaps into a Zygarde, and I'm able to align Virizion to Zygarde, which should be a good matchup for Virizion, assuming that the Zygarde is running Crunch and Earthquake, because both of those are going to be resisted. But now seeing what they have in the back, maybe I could have brought Drifblim into Zygarde because I can hit for double super effective with that Icy Wind and debuff my opponent, and then the crunches wouldn't be hurting so much, and I would have had Virizion on for Alligator. But either way, I was able to save shields for my Drifblim and take that win. GG's to our opponent. Moving on to the next battle, we're going to be up against a Venusaur on the lead, which again, our lead is going to be resisting everything from that Venusaur, so my opponent goes ahead and swaps into a Poliwrath. I'm going to bring Virizion into the Poliwrath rather than Drifblim because Virizion is going to be able to spam the Leaf Blades out a lot faster. Also, I don't mind losing the switch because both Drifblim and Skuntank are going to be really good against Venusaur, so I'm just going to let my Virizion go here. Unfortunately, we're not able to take them out because they were debuffing us with the Icy Winds, but then my opponent goes ahead and top lefts before even seeing what my final Pokemon is. Maybe both of their final Pokemon were weak to Skuntank, but GG's to our opponent. Moving on to the next battle, we're going to see a terrible lead of Zygarde, and a lot of Dragon-type leads are running Tentacruel in the back, so I have to watch out for that. I bring Drifblim in. Unfortunately, Drifblim is not going to be able to CMP tie on the Icy Wind with Zygarde, so I have to go ahead and shield the crunch, and then my opponent brings in a Shadow for Alligator. Okay, I'm expecting this to be a team that I've seen so many times. It is going to be a Dragon lead with Shadow for Alligator and Tentacruel in the back. So I bring Virizion in here. I know this is probably already a lost battle, but I'm gonna stay in and try as best as I can. I'm gonna go for these Trailblazes to start boosting our attack on the Skuntank, and I'm gonna go ahead and shield this. It was the Earthquake. Thank goodness my opponent didn't bait, because I think if they baited, they would have been able to make it to another Earthquake, but I am gonna be able to farm them down completely with the Poison Jabs on our Skuntank, and I have energy for their Tentacruel, but they have a shield left. I am going to be able to reach another move, however, go for a crunch, but now our opponent is going to be able to hit us with a Sludge Wave. Really unfortunate. If they had Scald and what's the other move? Scald and Acid Spray, I might have been able to win this, but unfortunately we are going to take a loss there. Moving on to the next battle, we're going to be up against a Guzzlord on the lead, and I probably should have stayed in this with my Skuntank, but I swap immediately into my Drifblim and I shield the Brutal Swing. I was really hoping they would stay in and take the Icy Wind, but they go ahead and they catch Icy Wind on for Alligator. Now, I decide to give up my second shield on this Ice Beam, and I'm going to go for an Icy Wind bait here. We take their first shield, and I'm even going to be able to reach another Icy Wind, take my opponent's final shield, and now both of us have no shields left. My opponent went ahead and threw a Hydro Cannon, taking our Drifblim out. I'm able to farm them down with my Skuntank, and they are, of course, going to bring that Guzzlord back in. They have Dragon Claw, so I'm thinking, okay, I might be able to take this win with my Virizion because as long as they don't have Sludge Bomb, I should be okay. I managed to catch the next Dragon Claw on my Virizion, And as I called it, their final Pokemon is going to be that Tentacruel, but we are going to start spamming out these Leaf Blades, and hopefully this Tentacruel doesn't go for a Blizzard or a Sludge Wave on our Virizion. It looks like they're going to go for a Scald. No, they go for a Sludge Wave and take us out. But, okay, I'm going to be able to reach 2 moves on Skuntank, so I might have a chance here. We take them out with the Crunch. I'm able to reach another Crunch on Guzzlord, and I was really hoping this would take them out. It does. We're able to take that win, and that was really close. GG's to our opponent. The only way I can describe this next battle is I was going to throw my phone out the window. You guys will see why in a bit, but my opponent leads Shadow Hippowdon into our Skuntank, which is a terrible lead for us. So I swap into my Drifblim and we draw out a Guzzlord. Okay, this is fine. I am going to be able to debuff their Guzzlord with these Icy Winds. I went ahead and shielded their first move. That way, their next Brutal Swing is going to hurt a lot less. But I'm not going to be able to reach another Icy Wind before my opponent can reach another Brutal Swing. So they are going to take us out here. And I bring Skuntank in now to farm their Guzzlord down completely. Now I have so much energy on the Skuntank, I'm going to be able to go for a Trailblaze on their Hippowdon. We take their final shield. I'm going to be able to reach another Trailblaze. This is really going to hurt, getting them into the red. I tried to catch a move on my Virizion, but unfortunately we fail. And my opponent's final Pokemon is going to be a Venusaur. This is absolutely terrible for our Virizion, but I am going to be able to land 3 Sacred Swords on this Venusaur, and we can get it pretty low, and I'm hoping that I could come in with Skuntank, get a little bit of farm from the Venusaur, and save my final shield for whatever the Hippowdon is going to throw. I come into a Skuntank here. I'm already getting frame drops, by the way, and they let us get a little bit of farm on their Venusaur. I'm at the Trailblaze now, so I go ahead and shield whatever this is. We managed to get the Trailblaze off, and then my app crashes. Niantic basically told me, nope, you can't have this win. To be fair, I can't put the full blame on Pokemon Go because my phone is a little bit old, so it might have been the fault of my phone, but unfortunately we're never going to figure out if we could have won that or not. I come back in and the match is over, so GG's to our opponent. That was still a positive set. We went 3-2 in that first set, but still, that was really disappointing. Anyways, moving on to the next battle. I restarted my app 10 times before playing the next set because I'm getting close to Veteran and I don't want to mess this up. But we get a lead of Mandibuzz, and this Mandibuzz cannot see my backline. So my opponent actually swaps into a Hippowdon, so I'm thinking they might be running double ground, but I am going to bring my Virizion into this. My Virizion is absolutely going to wall this Hippowdon. Both of the charge moves that it is running are going to be resisted. I end up leaving this match with so much energy on Virizion, but unfortunately, the Sacred Swords that we are going to throw on their Mandibuzz are going to do a little bit less damage because we got debuffed by one of their Scorching Sands. At least we're able to get them, I think, almost halfway, health-wise. And I bring Skuntank back in, and my opponent's final Pokemon is a Golurk, as I called it. GG's to our opponent. They go ahead and they top left. Alright, this next battle I should have lost because I get a little cocky and I try to call what their backline is, and I end up being very wrong, but my opponent is going to lead a Galarian Moltres. They swap immediately into a Salazzle, and because of how fast they swapped into that Salazzle, I was expecting them to have another fire type in the back, but we end up being very wrong. Drifblim, on the other hand, my goodness, is able to take a Dragon Pulse and a Poison Fang from Salazzle and survive and take the Salazzle out. We don't invest any shields, and because I was expecting that fire type in the back, I bring Virizion into the Galarian Moltres, but my opponent doesn't wait to see what comes in. They swap immediately. They blind swap into their Donphin, and now my Virizion is going to be switch locked, or their Donphin is going to be switch locked up against our Virizion. I also know that Donphin has access to play rough, so I go ahead and shield that, and then my opponent, it looks like they quit, but we're going to have to stay in here and try to take this Moltres out. I'm just going to go for these Sacred Swords. Take it out. Sorry, opponents. That was a tough match for you. But moving on to the next battle, we're going to be up against an Ampharos on the lead, and the last time I was up against an Ampharos lead, it really messed me up because they built up to a Focus Blast. I ended up shielding and we basically got destroyed in that match. But this time my opponent doesn't build up to the Focus Blast, so I know it's going to be a Thunder Punch. We let it go, but because my opponent went ahead and invested a shield, I invest a shield myself. I'm able to reach another Crunch, and my opponent uses their final shield. I'm going to come in with Virizion now. My opponent revealed that they had Brutal Swing and Thunder Punch, so I know whatever this is, it's not going to hurt Virizion. They have a Cresselia in the back. When they bring it in, I bring in Drifblim, and then when my opponent sees that Drifblim, they go ahead and they top left. You know what I think they could have had in the back? They might have had a Virizion of their own in the back, so GG's to our opponent. Now moving on to the next battle, we are going to be up against a terrible lead of Cobalion, so I swap immediately into my Drifblim, and my opponent goes for a Stone Edge. I shield that, and then they swap into their own Drifblim. Now because I'm ahead by energy, I am going to be able to take their Drifblim out. They just needed to invest a shield to win Switch. But my opponent gives up Switch, and their final Pokemon is going to be a Shadow Dragonite. Not ideal for our Skuntank, but at least Skuntank is not going to be aligned to Cobalion. I'm going to have my Virizion for that Cobalion, and my plan is to go for one Sacred Sword up against this Cobalion. No shield, whatever they're going to throw, and go for a full farm down. That way I have a ton of energy for their Dragonite, and I'm going to force them to shield one of our moves, or both of our moves, from Virizion, take both of my opponent's shields, and we go ahead and shield ourselves because if I could get their shields out of the way, then I can come in with Skuntank and go for a Crunch on this Dragonite, and this will be enough to take their Dragonite out, giving us the win, and GG's to our opponent. Moving on to the next battle, we're going to be up against a trainer that we battled yesterday, but it looks like they went ahead and switched up their team. This time they are running a Shadow Dragonite on the lead. Now, I'm going to go ahead and shield my Skuntank because I'm afraid that they might have a Tentacruel in the back, so I kind of have to win this lead. But my opponent calls that I go for a Trailblaze. If I had just gone for that Crunch, I would have been able to take them out without investing my second shield. But now we have no shields left, and my opponent brings in something much worse than Tentacruel. They bring in a Galarian Weezing, which my entire backline is going to be weak to. I have to bring in Drifblim and unfortunately take these Brutal Swings from this Weezing. I go for an Icy Wind here and they actually let it go. They still have 2 shields left. My opponent's final Pokemon is going to be a Clefable. No way was Virizion going to win that. So I go ahead and I top left. GG's to our opponent, but that is still going to be a 4-1 in that set, getting us really close to Veteran. Now, I don't know what happens in this final set, but we end up getting so many positive matchups. It's kind of insane. It was like the algorithm was in my favor the entire time. But in this next battle, we are going to be up against an Abomasnow on the lead, which our Skuntank is going to destroy. My opponent swaps into a Feraligatr, which my Virizion is going to destroy, and they are going for Hydro Cannons. It looks like they're not going for Ice Beam. I get a little greedy here, and I go for a farm down on the Feraligatr, so I do end up investing a shield anyways, but that doesn't matter because I'm going to have so much energy for this Abomasnow. I'm going to be able to go for 3 Sacred Swords and take the Abomasnow out, but my opponent still has 2 shields left, and their final Pokemon is going to be a Shadow Golurk. I bring in my Drifblim, and my opponent goes ahead and top left. Okay, wait, maybe not all of my matches were in my favor because in this battle, I remember my opponent has a huge Core Breaker for my team in the back, but they are going to lead a Tentacruel. I'm going to go for a Crunch here, and I am going to let the first Scald go, but my opponent is going to be able to make it to another Scald, and the second one will be enough to take our Skuntank out. So I am going to invest a shield on the Scald right here. That way I might have a chance to win lead in case I need alignment for whatever my opponent has in the back. I go for a Trailblaze now to boost our attack, and my opponent is going to bring in a Moltres. This is not great because they are going to go for a full farm down and have so much energy for the next Pokemon that I'm going to bring in. But I bring in Drifblim. I'm expecting my opponent to have Ancient Power and Brave Bird, not Payback. But still, I go ahead and shield that Brave Bird. I'm going to go for an Icy Wind here to take a shield from my opponent. And their final Pokemon is going to be a Hippowdon. Okay, at least Virizion isn't going to need shields against this Hippowdon, and I have a plan here. I need to leave with a move stored. That way their Moltres is going to be forced to throw their energy on my Virizion, and they won't have enough energy to get to a move on our Drifblim. So I'm going to go for a Leaf Blade here. My opponent actually shields their Hippowdon, but they bring in Moltres now and go for that Brave Bird. Because they were debuffed, I'm able to astonish them down and get to an Icy Wind on the Hippowdon, take the Hippowdon out, and we take that win. That Moltres could have completely destroyed my life, but we still end up coming out with the win. Moving on to the next battle, we're going to be up against a Cresselia on the lead, which is a really nice lead for us. I'm going to be able to go for these crunches up against this Cresselia and take these Moonblasts. They're not going to do too much damage, but we managed to get a defense drop, and then my opponent swaps into a Feraligatr. I bring Virizion in for this Feraligatr. They let the Leaf Blade go. I'm going to let whatever this is go because I don't necessarily need to win switch, because my Drifblim is going to be able to perform pretty well against a Cresselia as well. But they are going for Hydro Cannons. I'm not going to shield anything. I survived the third Hydro Cannon. We're able to take their Feraligatr out, and then I blind throw the Leaf Blade, expecting my opponent to bring in their Cresselia, but they bring in a Talonflame. Now I bring my Drifblim in against this Talonflame, and I'm going to start debuffing them with Icy Wind. We get a shield out of the way. They're going to take our shields as well. I'm calling that this is the Brave Bird. It is good thing we shielded, and we can go for another Icy Wind and get my opponent's final shield. Now they swap into Cresselia. I'm going to store an Icy Wind on my Drifblim and then bring in Skuntank, and I'm not going to be able to go for a full farm down on the Cresselia. They were going to be able to make it to another move, so I go for a crunch here. I get really lucky because I'm not sure if Talonflame wins CMP over Drifblim, but they might have been able to farm our Skuntank down if I didn't make it to that crunch. But we make it to the crunch, we take the Talonflame out, and we take that win. Moving on to the next battle, we're going to see a terrible lead of Shadow Golurk, and this Shadow Golurk can mudslap my Skuntank down into oblivion, so I swap immediately into my Drifblim and we draw out a Registeel. The Zap Cannons are going to hurt, so I decide to shield the first one. Thank goodness they nerfed Zap Cannon, otherwise my opponent would get an attack drop on my Drifblim. But because my opponent let the second Shadow Ball go, I decide to double shield my Drifblim, and I have a feeling that my opponent's third Pokemon is going to be very good against Virizion, so I catch the Shadow Punch on Virizion. I'm going to be able to take a shield from them with Leaf Blade, but we're not going to be able to throw the second one because Golurk is going to win CMP, go for a Dynamic Punch. It's going to be enough to take our Virizion out, and I'm just hoping that I could farm their Golurk down before they can reach another Shadow Punch, but they reach that Shadow Punch, and I get super lucky because their last Pokemon is a Shadow Dragonite, and I have two Icy Winds ready for the Shadow Dragonite. My opponent lets the first one go. It is going to one-shot, and we take that win. GG's to our opponent. And guys, we have reached the final battle of the video. It is going to be another win, giving us a 5-0 in this set and getting us well over veteran. I'm just going to leave you guys here with the battle. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like my content, please consider subscribing. Maybe leave a like. It helps me out so much. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.